You're asleep, but suddenly your brain lights up with activity. You begin to thrash around in bed, eyes darting from side to side, even though you're fast asleep. Your breathing becomes faster, more shallow, and you might even let out a yell or a giggle. Without waking you up, what do you think is happening right now? This might seem like a strange question, but in reality, this nightly spectacle is one of the most common experiences that humans share. It's something that affects all of us, but there are still so many questions about exactly what happens when you dream and why it's important for our brains to put on this nightly show. What happens in your brain when you dream? To answer the question of why we dream, it helps to understand what exactly is happening in our bodies when we do it. The most intense dreaming typically occurs during rapid eye movement or REM sleep. This is the stage of sleep when your brain is most active, second only to wakefulness. During REM sleep, your eyes dart around under your eyelids, your heart rate increases, and your muscles become temporarily paralyzed. The paralysis keeps you from acting out your dreams, which can get pretty intense. Even though your body is basically paralyzed, your brain is working overtime. In fact, research suggests that REM sleep may actually be more mentally taxing than being awake. And if you've ever woken up from a particularly jarring dream, you know how intense these mental gymnastics can get. But why does your brain need to go through all this trouble every night? And what's the point of dreaming in the first place? Unfortunately, science doesn't have a clear-cut answer to those questions. There are plenty of theories, but scientists aren't sure which, if any, are completely accurate. That said, some of these ideas have a lot of evidence to back them up. One of the leading theories is that dreams help us process emotions. In other words, dreams may help us make sense of our feelings. If this were true, it would explain why dreams can be so weird and disjointed. Emotions don't always follow the rules of logic. So maybe our brains don't either when they're busy processing them in our dreams. This idea also jives with observations that people who experience intense emotions during the day tend to have more intense dreams at night. But if this is true, why do we have to run through all those emotions again in our dreams? In real time, according to this theory, we do. When we're awake, we constantly take in new information, both good and bad. Our brains then process that information, which includes the emotions attached to it. In order to file it away, this process can take a lot of time, especially for emotionally charged experiences. That's why some memories feel more vivid than others. But after we've processed those big emotions, they become part of our long-term memory, ready to be brought up whenever we need them. The catch is that the way we process our emotions while we're awake isn't very efficient. Sometimes we find ourselves reliving a stressful experience over and over again in our minds. Or we might dwell on a sad memory instead of focusing on something pleasant. Basically, we don't always process our emotions in the best or healthiest ways. But when we dream, our brains get to replay these emotional experiences in a more productive manner. Research has shown that when we dream, our brain processes emotion-charged memories in a way that promotes better sleep. In other words, dreams might be a way for our brains to get us to stop fixating on certain stressful thoughts so we can finally drift off. Another leading theory is that dreams help us learn and memorize things. Scientists have noted that people who have just learned something new are more likely to incorporate that information into their dreams that night. For example, if you spend the afternoon learning the names of 20 new Pokemon, you might find that you meet some of them in your dreams. While we sleep, our brains sift through everything we learned during the day and decide what to keep. Usually, most of it gets tossed out. But important stuff, like how to ride a bike or the name of the main character in the book you're reading, gets filed away in our long-term memory. Dreams may actually play a role in this process too. By revisiting these memories, we help cement them in our brains. One study found that people who were trained on a task while awake were able to retain more of that knowledge if they were allowed to dream about the task. And another study found that training rats on a maze led to increased activity in the same part of their brains both when they were awake and when they were asleep. In other words, their dreams could help them remember what they had learned. So not only do we share the experience of dreaming with every other human, we also share the content of our dreams. Recent research suggests that dreams might be a universal experience shared by all humans, regardless of culture. And we also tend to dream about similar things no matter where we live. Across cultures, people report dreaming about being chased, falling, taking a test, flying, or having teeth fall out. But the symbolism of our dreams can vary depending on our personal experiences. A common dream symbol is something falling from the sky. According to psychologist and author Patricia Garfield, these symbols often represent changes in our lives. If we interpret the object that's falling, we can better understand the change that's coming our way. For example, a falling star might represent a sudden burst of energy, like meeting someone exciting, or a falling house might signal a change in living situations. In general, dream symbols are thought to reflect our deepest fears, desires, hopes, and dreams, but also our worries and traumas. That's why dreams can sometimes feel so intense. They're often representations of things that matter a lot to us. Stressful or traumatic events can stick in our memories, both consciously and unconsciously. And they might come up in our dreams because our brains want to help us process them. Sometimes dreams can serve as a kind of mental therapy session. They allow us to revisit upsetting events in a safe environment and work through difficult emotions. For example, people who experience childhood trauma were found to benefit greatly from dream-based therapy. In one case study, a woman was able to heal from her trauma by incorporating her dreams about it into talk therapy. This is an example of how dreams can be used to treat mental health conditions. And it's just one of the many ways that dreams can affect our everyday lives. In addition to helping us process emotions and memories, dreams can help us adjust to major life changes, like moving to a new city, getting married, or starting a new job. Dreams can also help us practice for future scenarios, such as giving a speech or meeting new people. In a way, dreams act like a safe space where we can try out different behaviors without risking anything in our waking lives. If you can remember your dreams, this might be easy to see. But what if you can't remember your dreams? Does that mean you aren't dreaming? No, most of us dream between 3 and 6 times each night. But since we typically go through our EM sleep about every 90 minutes, we often wake up in the middle of a dream cycle and forget what we were dreaming about. It's not uncommon for people to wake up in the middle of a dream and not remember any of it once they're awake. This doesn't mean that we didn't dream at all that night, though. It just means that we forgot the content of our dreams. So although we might not remember dreaming, our brains still did it. All of this goes to show that dreaming is a fundamental part of what it means to be human. It's something we all do, whether we remember it or not, and it's something that helps us process our memories, emotions, and experiences. So the next time you find yourself suddenly sitting up in bed, eyes wide with a wild look on your face, don't worry. You probably just had a really vivid dream, and that's totally normal. Dreams can tell us a lot about our emotional and mental states, but what about our physical health? The DNA in your body is like an instruction manual that determines everything from your eye color to how well your blood clots. And like any instruction manual, sometimes there are typos. Those typos can result in genetic disorders, and they can even increase your risk of getting diseases like cancer. Learn how genetic typo slips happen and what we can do to correct them with the brilliant course, DNA, Introduction to Genetic Engineering. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, hit the like button below to tell us. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon to get more fun science videos like this one.